welcome to the Cliff Notes for lecture number 2, the Conceptualization of Punishment. This is actually another short lecture. Trust me, they're going to get a lot longer than this there afterwards. But essentially, there's a few things I want you to get out of this lecture. First of all is that the first set of slides, which is kind of like the nuts and bolts of the criminal justice system, a definition for penal, i.e. penal codes, definition for corrections, which is important because of the scope of what corrections involved. It's not just about punishment, it's all about treatment as well. Our prison system technically is servicing clients, so they're supposed to take care of those clients, not punish the bodies of those clients, etc. And so what I wanted to focus on in this lecture is the scope of corrections, what that involves, how there's 2.3 million people incarcerated in the United States, 1.5 million in prisons, 800,000 in jails. And just to make a distinction between prisons and jails, I'll be talking about this later, but I might as well start talking about this now, is that we tend to use those two words interchangeably, but prisons tend to be, prisons are places for convicted felons post-adjudication, meaning you've been found guilty of a crime and that's it, you're serving your sentence. Whereas jail has a lot more functions. A lot of people are there pre-adjudication or during the adjudication process, before they've been sentenced, before they've been punished. About 60% of all people in jail are there during their trial process. And so that is a major distinction between the two. Jails tend to be local. Jails tend to be close to the court system. Prisons tend to be very far away. And so there's that. There's 1.5 million people in jail, about 800,000 people, 1.5 million people in prison, about 800,000 people in jail on any given day. But keep this in mind that jail has a lot more turnover, because if you took the total number of people in jail in a year, it adds up to 10 million people. 10 million people pass through our jail system, but on any given day it's 800,000. Another 5 million people on community supervision, both probation and parole. We'll be talking about that later on in the semester. I also wanted to discuss those correctional models. There's a list of 5 things which are basically our prison system is supposed to accommodate, but all 5 are impossible simultaneously. So usually any prison system or Department of Corrections aims for 3 of those, 2 of those. Restitution and rehabilitation are easily the most difficult, but most prisons focus on punishment, deterrence, and incapacitation, meaning taking away someone's capacity. This lecture mostly just focuses on concepts. The penal codes, corrections, those models for our prison system. And then, most importantly, are like 2 important concepts that are related to punishment that are really important. I'm going to be talking about them a lot throughout this class. And that is the utilitarian and retributive perspectives. And I really want you guys to know these things well. Generally speaking, the utilitarian perspective focuses on rehabilitation, focuses on the future of the correctional client, of the product that you're going to be making. And I'm alluding to your first writing assignment, which I believe is due at the end of February, where I'm asking you to create your own prison system. And that prison system, I want you to consider both utilitarian and retributive perspectives. The retributive perspective focuses much more on immediate punishment, immediate adjustment. It doesn't concern itself with the future. It doesn't concern itself with the end product. It just concerns with justice in the moment. Some might consider revenge to be retributive. But 2 very different perspectives, and we're going to be talking about both of these throughout the semester. So lecture-wise, those are the things I wanted you to focus on. There's a discussion question for this week which focuses on Emil Durkheim. Hopefully you guys know who Durkheim is, but Emil Durkheim's concept of functionalism and how we set boundaries in society. It's kind of like this is a discussion about the function of criminal categories in society. And so generally speaking, Durkheim would say that we need crime in society in order to create those lines to figure out what's bad and what's good. Functionalism, generally speaking, the metaphor that most people tend to use is like, this is a really mean one. I mean, it's kind of getting outdated because of how mean it is, but the old metaphor is a mom and her child walking down the street, and she points at a homeless person and says, if you don't do well in school, that's where you're going to end up. That's a very extreme, perverse version of functionalism, but it still works. The case study that I want you to focus on this week is that of Richard Reed, speaking of boundary setting. And so, as you'll read up, Richard Reed attempted an act of terrorism, was unsuccessful at it, but it completely changed how we do airport security. If you think about it, every time you get on an airplane, what do you have to remove? Your belts and your shoes. And the shoes part of that is because of this one person. So it's actually an excellent example of functionalism. One more time, since I don't have this in the lecture notes, if you don't understand what functionalism is, functionalism generally discusses the function of certain actions. What function do they serve in society? What function does religion serve in society? It creates a great set of rules. What function does government serve in society? Government sets up those rules and enforces them. What function does crime have in society? And you would think that it has no function, but it does, because it lets us know what's good and what's bad. It lets us know who should be scapegoated, etc. So, answer the discussion question about functionalism and Durkheim this Friday. Also answer the case about Richard Reed this Friday. Read up on the lectures. Catch up on the readings for this week. You guys should be reading the very first chapter, Introduction, Thinking About Punishment. Catch up on that this week. And generally speaking, you have any questions, let me know. All right, guys, take care.